I hope all of you are enjoying the festivities with your loved ones, जिस भी किसी कोने में हो आप इंडिया के। मेरा नाम है अभिजीत स्वर्णकार एंड वी आर कमिंग अप विद एन इंटरेस्टिंग सीरीज ऑफ डिस्कशंस जिसे हम कह रहे हैं ग्लव्स ऑफ एएमए।
जी हाँ, ग्लव्स ऑफ कहा हमने, यानी कि एब्सोल्युटली नो होल्ड्स बार्ड। मेरा नाम है प्रद्युत हंडे और चलो शुरू करते हैं कुछ ऑक्टेगन की पंची बातें।
Joining us today is Mayank Kohli.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Good to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
So before we begin, I have a famous quote from Bruce Lee. He once famously remarked, what does it mean to you, Mayank? Let's start with this.
I mean, pretty hugely in all walks of life is what I feel this can be implemented on. For me, it's basically about not limiting yourself with something, right? Not basing your identity onto something, but just keep evolving. You know, that's what it speaks about, of not limiting ourselves, rather than just letting life move you around, in the sense that have that capability of just molding yourself onto something.
Sounds good, words to live by. And on that note, let's actually get down into the meat of the conversation itself. And we're going to start with getting to know a little bit about you, trying to understand your background, interests, so on and so forth, right? So maybe if you could just share about, like how your journey started as a fighter and what inspired you, what prompted you to enter the world of mixed martial arts and combat sports in general.
Dude, I started at a very young age. I was 15, 16. I think my childhood was as such where I needed something to get out to. I think my dad would be one of the biggest people that kind of influenced me to get into martial arts, because he would watch a lot of action movies, mostly English action movies, because he was like watching all the Hindi ones, they were users. But a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, Bruce Lee, and Steven Seagal, all these guys. But I was really influenced by Jean-Claude Van Damme. I really enjoyed the kicks and the flexibility, plus the aesthetic look and everything. So at the age of 15, 16, I was just training at home. I would lie to my friends that I was actually training somewhere just to seem like a badass, because I was doing that at home, right? I had great flexibility. I was kicking the pillars, and not actually a pillar, but I would tie a pillow with a pillar and just practice on it till the time my house started moving and my mom had to literally stop me from doing all of that. And I started working out as well. So back in 2011 is when I started actually training in kickboxing. Again, my aunt was like neighbor with this person called Edgar Nortonus, who was the only Muay Thai, like the only few legitimate trainers back in the day, 2011. So this guy was Dutch, and he trained in Muay Thai throughout his life, and he had taught a lot of people. So that's how I got into it. Otherwise, prior to that, I mean, I was just training at home, and 2011 happened. Started training, and then he disappeared. There's a story with that also, that I started teaching in the same year. Like 6 months into training, I'm just a 17-year-old and I was teaching. When I look back, it was like I was a bad teacher, and I had no clue of what I was doing. Like, plus, I was all sorts of shy, insecure, and I mean, so that kind of helped me. I mean, of me to teach people at that age, it helped me to get out of my own cocoon or shell, and kind of grateful for that journey, man.
A few key themes that came out of there, that spirit of jugaad, where you had a pillow attached to a pillar, early influences coming from action heroes from Hollywood yesteryear, and of course the major push that came from your dad. I think a lot of us, if we did pick up sport back in the day, a lot of that initial motivation and nudging came from our dads themselves. So yeah, man, amazing stories.
So tell us a little bit more about your starting days, Mayank. Maybe Jahangir Azab, you used to train with him. And when did Warriors Cove start? Tell us a little bit about that.
So he was also training under Edgar back in 2011. He was, I think, training before I was. 3 months further, I think, down into training. And he was pretty much like very passionate about it. Someone I've looked forward to training with, uh, and kind of in a way a role model that you find at the academy. Like someone who's really fit and he's training hardcore and all that aggression. Plus, I was also that young kid that just walked into with all of that
Yeah,
kind of feelings and emotions as well, right? A lot of suppressed energy and stuff that I want to press out somewhere. I'm trying to find my place where I
sure.
can just let that out, right? So he was training there. This was 2011, and then it disappeared. 2012 is when Warriors Cove came about in the scene. 2012. There was Ashwin, Jahangir, Rajiv, Berry, and I. So it was an amazing time, dude. That's when I started training jiu-jitsu as well, because I remember Jahangir had come back from UK where he was uh, training with an academy, and he was the first one to have experienced jiu-jitsu. We guys were just doing Muay Thai here. Uh, I was, and that's what I tell people, that my plan was not to get into jiu-jitsu that much.
Mm.
It was mainly I had two options: one to just learn, to just not get my dash kicked, right? But I know they get censored here, but totally unfiltered. Yeah, I had to either one option of just to learn or just quit. Right at the age of 17, 18, I think it was 18, or just quit. I'm like, okay, I'm not enjoying this scene of getting taken on the ground by Jahangir and you know and not knowing anything. Like I mean, this is Muay Thai, so you probably have experienced that, right, Abhijit? Where I mean, you're going against someone who's like trained and you're like, yeah, totally knob and they kind of manhandle you. It's not a good feeling. So, but yeah, it kept showing up and yeah, kept showing up eventually. And I that's what I tell people. If you want to get good at something, even if I'm trying to get better at something else in life, I think repetition is something. It's like it's the mother of skills, as is a quote by a person that I follow. So that's one thing. People tell me that, "Oh, you've trained really super hard." There have been phases in these 10 years where I've trained really hard, but there have been phases where I haven't trained that much hard, right? But it's just about being there, showing up, and training. And no matter how you're feeling and stuff, sure, I've gone through that as well, but I haven't felt good and stuff. But trained, and yeah, that's how the experience has been so far during the initial years and so on.
It makes sense. I think in sport in general, right? Particularly in combat sports, they keep saying trust the process, right? Because a lot of people only look at the from the outside. They're only looking at the results and the outcome, right? They don't really know the foundation, like to just to build that foundation and keep going day after day, what it takes. And as an athlete in general, so critical to just keep believing in the fact that you're doing the right things and the results will eventually follow. So with great perseverance needs to come great patience. So awesome, awesome there.
I think you're involved in coaching a lot of young talent these days as well. There are a lot of people who are working with you. So I'm pretty sure all this experience, this is coming in handy when you're, working with them.
It's a lot of learning that I am also taking in
Right.
from these individuals as well. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I've been teaching, so mainly since a year and the more, that's mainly been my focus, where I'm teaching, focusing a lot on my health as well, mental health, physical health, and otherwise, mainly teaching. So it's been a great experience of coming across individuals as well when they step in, that how many months are gonna is it how many months are required for us to just get to a level where
Exactly.
we can defend ourselves. That was a general question or a concern when people would just walk in, but my answer to that has been the same since the beginning, right? Because my process has been that of being that shy, introverted kid who was, I mean, I would get into fights and stuff, but I mean, not that I've never, I don't fight outside the street, and I don't, I'm not that kind of person, because there are lots of consequences attached to it as well, so no one wants to. It's just the feeling of being safe, right? Plus, you're walking around with your people that you love, and you should know you should be in that capacity of being able to protect them. So that's the feeling. So with people as well, when they would come in with such questions, I would just tell them that it's not a certification or any sort, right?
Mhm.
It's not a degree that you've achieved. It's a constant practice. Just like you go to a gym or you do your own workout and stuff just to remain healthy, right? It's somewhat similar.
Mhm.
Surely you could ease off once you have gotten to a certain level, right? Things get much more easier. That
Right.
goes in with every lifestyle, right?
True.
You become you start running a company probably, right? And you are kind of you've made someone else the CEO and you're kind of enjoying the deal out of it, right? So
Right.
that comes after a while where you kind of take a backseat and you're kind of safe, right? But again, when it comes to competition, you gotta be at it.
Yep.
But then we're talking about self-defense. You gotta have done a certain level of, training, amount of training. So I train with a lot of corporates and stuff,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and all.
Nice.
And it's been a great learning with them as well. And they want to experience something like this. So I offer them. I spar with them, and I kind of realized that I've been sparring more now than I was sparring when I was actually competing and training regularly. Right? I've been sparring every single day because I'm teaching every day. So sparring these individuals because I feel like the training, the teaching is not worth it if I'm not actually sparring with them,
Yep.
right? Because they're not actually getting the experience of fighting with me. What's the point? Uh, so yeah, that's my answer. And yeah, it's getting very important as well. In general terms, I was looking at the news yesterday, a couple of days ago, and a teenage kid was like, a teenage boy actually was gang raped in
Yeah.
Delhi, which is like super strange. I was about to make a post on that and stuff. Maybe we would do in the future. But it's super crazy, right? I mean, that you need to know how to defend yourself. And again, I saw a little video as well where this was a couple of months ago where there was this attempt of robbery where this person attacks this woman, just snatches away a chain, just catches her in a rear naked choke, right? And so basically, this robber has seen a
Yeah.
few fights
Yes.
or whatever, he's seen a few techniques where he actually goes for a choke. For someone who's like
Yep.
totally untrained, that's really hard to get out of it,
True.
right? And that woman passes away. She's luckily alive, but they succeed in taking the chain away and just running away. There's a video of it on YouTube. So yeah, that's how it is, and yeah, it's been a great experience, dude. Again, just teaching other people as well, like teaching kids as well. So that has also taught me different things to have patience and other things, and what kind of things that I would want to give into this kid as well, right? To not just fight exactly there, and what's the purpose? Why is he actually training,
Right.
right? Learning how to hit and all of these sweeps that I'm teaching him. So I put him in that situation
Mm.
that okay, you're playing football, right? What if you fall down and someone like actually trying to hit you, right? You're not trying to hit them, but
Yeah.
there's probably a sweep that you can do
Yeah.
when he comes close to you if he's trying to kick you. So just trying to make that interesting and plus make them understand that there are certain consequences to violence as well. So you got to be aware of that. Probably mostly apply to kids, but for even for grown-ups. And yeah, and and then to experience violence in the sense that if you want to have that feeling of comfort,
Mm.
of safety outside, you want to go through that kind of situation during training as well,
True.
so that it's not a totally new experience for you, so that you don't get into a fight flight. You would certainly get into a fight flight mode when you get in that situation, but to get to handle that better, your emotions better. So I think that's about self defense in the sense when you talk about self defense, you could just cover that aspects.
Yeah, yeah, and like that, I could totally correlate to the fact that you put them in situations that makes them think what their response should ideally be, right? And that's probably the way to sort of like drive home the point or drive home the lessons that you're teaching with regards to self-defense, right? And you also touched upon the consequences that come.
Yeah, that's something. I think that's the kind of compliments that have been given to us as well, which is like a great. I remember that like there was once a doctor training with us at the academy itself. He came up to me and
Hmm.
this is Warriors Cove itself in phase one, and came up to me and he's like, dude, what you guys do is kind of amazing. You're really passionate about teaching every single thing, and not many people, not many employees are like that. You know, employees are like that,
Right.
and you're just giving it all. So I'm like, dude, for a second I was like, okay, I mean, isn't that normal? Isn't that normal, right? Because it's pretty much normal for us. Not trying to do anything special and stuff, but it's just to give away, dude, because we've learned that has been in one way that has been an advantage as well
Mhm.
because we've seen the wrongs as well in
Correct.
terms of the sport. Like what were the missing pointers that we kind of did? Probably a wrong technique that we've been
Yeah.
working on for a long time, and then you realize after a couple of years, okay, this is something that you were totally doing it wrong, and then you keep fixing it. So it's been a lot of self learning for us as well, for us Indian, athletes in general who are training for a very long time. Now the scene is pretty well equipped, right? You
Right.
have so many academies, and the trainers are wonderful. They are getting promoted. We have brown belts and black belts getting promoted from different parts of the world. But if you look back, like 11 years ago, 10 years ago, the scene was like totally dry, and you had to just do with what you had.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad that you actually brought up that point, right, where the amateur scene is changing now. Dig a little deeper in this response. That would be great for our audience.
Yeah, the amateur scene is very bright, dude. That's what I see
Hmm.
happening, at least from our place. In a sense, I've trained at Warriors Cove very recently, and I still train with them. Uh, so the scene is amazing. They have some amazing upcoming fighters that are coming up. Plus, MFN 10 is also happening, so you guys will be able to see some good new talents that are going to get a chance again. Plus, there was some event. I'm not pretty sure today or yesterday, IMA event where a lot of amateur fighters were also doing. Plus, yeah, it's kind of good that there are these organizations like
Yeah,
MFN, which is kind of giving away and doing so much, even when they're not getting much out of it,
true.
right? At least for now. And they've stuck to it. They've changed their strategy. They've learned from all of the past leagues that happened, SFL
Yeah,
and other things. So they're taking their time into it, and doing the right thing. They are featured on. They'll be they signed
yeah, with
something with
Disney Hotstar.
Hotstar. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's the scene that just tells you the scene is only going to get better. When it comes to amateur, there are some amazing talents. I won't name them, but because there are many to name,
true.
but some amazing guys from Warriors School itself, and yeah, man, and then the scene looks super bright. A lot of fighters are fighting in one FC as well. Then we have Anshul, a fighter from Austrian. Anshul
Hmm.
will be fighting in the semis of UFC
Yeah,
contenders.
yeah.
So fight is, I think, this month itself. October is the last what I checked. So big things coming up, dude. I think the scene is only going to get better. Sure, cricket is
It's
there.
going to
It,
be like
it
that.
overshadows everything, right? That you put in front of it. But there needs to be a smart way. It's not, yeah. It's not to. It just comes down to, for us to not to compete with that,
Yeah,
but probably make our own niche in one way, right? To serve to our niche and slowly build upon that because everyone enjoys fighting,
correct.
right? Everyone enjoys fighting, even if that is not involving them, but just watching
Yeah,
others fight as well. Primal that you come to a point where you are like, okay, is this actually a sport? We're talking about MMA.
yeah,
Is it actually a sport or like is this fighting or because a lot of people there could be a lot of debate between that whether it's actually some fighters just get offended like oh this is fighting for me because they're coming in with that mindset,
correct.
right? I mean, yeah, but all in all, it just comes down to just showing up and doing your best in whatever you've learned in whatever you're trying to showcase, basically.
Do you think that in India we have good facilities, gyms, coaches?
I think it's becoming better
Mm.
slowly. We're not going downhill, is what I can say, right? Which is a great sign.
Hmm.
But we are taking a leap further in a big way, is what I can feel in the coming years for the coming years. Basically, a great step forward because uh, we have a lot of fighters now that are who are very technical,
Yeah,
and they've also taken the responsibility now, starting their own academies. I know about these individuals, many of them, uh, who are actively competing, and they have their own academies.
hmm,
And then from those academies, new fighters are coming out who are there, who are very young and very technical. So, and yeah, and all of these fighters with all the experience know what all requirement is needed for them to generate an athlete, right? So, and they are kind of pushing into it. Sure, there is like a money is
Yeah.
like a huge factor when it comes to that. And I was reading a couple of posts as well where a lot of amateur fighters required,
Yeah.
some support. Yeah, some support through, some means to travel outside. That is the thing, because unless I think in India, MFN is the only organization which is kind of giving you a decent amount of money, to fight and probably to put your name out. And so that's the entire thing. It'll be few more years would be kind of, hard for these upcoming fighters. It'll just be about, putting everything into it,
Mm.
and yeah, just giving your best, just try out for some opportunities that will just come out, and then just hope that UFC and all these organizations also start eyeing. So in a way, you have to just hope that all the fighters that are trying to go abroad and try and
Yeah.
find internationally, they succeed in doing that,
Correct.
right? So they can there could be a breakout so that the media also picks on it,
Yeah.
right?
And sort of
Whatever sells, the media takes on
blows
it,
up,
right?
blows up
Yeah.
in the country then.
Right, it blows up, right? So that's the entire thing. So rather than having any sort of envy with any of the fighters that are going outside or whatever, if you're not succeeding in that, just hope they do well, right? And so, I mean, that's the way the sport is going to boom here.
Can see so much more interest in the sport at large. And, like all of what you were sharing only augurs well for the sport moving forward.
Right from the beginning to see different changes. Like I went to the academy training, and I don't even know these guys. So I'm coming back after 1.5 years
Mm.
of not training with that academy. I see this guy training, and literally I'm having a hard time because I mean, they are learning all the new things,
Mhm.
right? Which is kind of the useful stuff. And it's kind of amazing that how quickly they are getting into it because uh, they know what to not waste their time on,
Correct.
right? And then what's effective, and yeah, and then the methods of training as well. Back in the day, we wouldn't have people like we would have issues finding sparring
Correct.
partners, but now you have in the same room you have like 10 different fighters, probably two of your same weight category training. It's a great feeling, and that's how I think we could go further when it comes to going further in the sport and making this, names for ourselves or just making the sport bigger when it comes to in India. So many talents like in one room. It is kind of amazing to
Yeah.
now experience that.
And now that you've mentioned it, we've touched a little bit about the Indian MMA circuit. We're going to just magnify or rather demagnify a little bit and look at the global scene. One of the common things that a lot of folks who even watch the sport, they think it's sort of like glorified brawling where anything goes. We create that awareness about the sport at large and simplify it for potential fans across the globe.
Yeah, that's a important question, dude. So even though I feel that the sport MMA is kind of has just boomed outside
Yeah.
hugely, uh, here the scene is slightly not picking up that quickly is
Mhm.
because we have wrestling as well, which is still considered pro wrestling. We are still considered as like actual fighting
Correct.
because yeah, it's just still considered actual fighting. Plus, again, the old understanding of people that talk about karate and they think probably MMA is the same thing,
Yeah.
karate, judo, and all of these things, right? Because I speak to people and then they want to know something from me before starting their training
Mhm.
journey or anything. And they tell me that, okay, I've trained in judo or karate for many years, these is years ago.
Mhm.
But it's a totally different thing, dude. And again, it just comes down to educating people by. I mean, many of them have to just experience it.
Right.
That's one thing, you have to experience that. Uh, some other things were like just to have these events as well. Like we've had ADCC in
Correct.
India where they've done events in a mall
Yeah.
where people were kind of clueless, right? The shoppers and everyone's kind of clueless what's happening. We've had that in City Walk. We've had that here in Gurgaon as well. and so people didn't realize, like, okay, this is not wrestling. What is it? And then yeah, some of the Bollywood movies also kind of helped, or I don't know,
I mean,
helped or not helped. I don't know how to say it, but they've just shown some sort of a
Yeah.
cage fighting kind of thing, right? They brought in the cage, which kind of has made people wonder, and they have done some grappling stuff, sure, over the top stuff, which is kind of
yeah.
Yeah.
Bollywood and Indian cinema in general. But that has kind of helped people kind of intrigued in that. And if I tell people that, okay, what were you, where were you competing and stuff inside a cage, that I do mixed martial art MMA, they look at me and I'm like, okay, a cage inside the fight. Probably you've seen Sultan or some other fight in other
Tiger.
movies or whatever. I try to mention, I'm like, okay, yeah, Sultan, we had seen Sultan. I'm like, same thing, right? I'm just not suplexing people. That's how it is. But yeah, man, and I think it's about slowly and steadily we'll get. It's we can't just force people
Hmm.
to. I would like to educate people on a lot of things, but it's just I think it's just a slow process, and I think with how it's going mainstream now, with going on television and all of these OTT platforms.
Yeah. I don't want to watch a sequel of
Why did you
Liger.
watch this one, bro? Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen Liger.
Neither, I mean, the point is, neither have I, but I don't want to see it come to the market.
Okay, it has Mike Tyson in it. Okay, I've seen Mike Tyson promoted. Yeah, yeah. Okay, now I remember Liger.
Yeah,
Right.
this is the latest. He's basically playing an MMA fighter, but he apparently has to fight a boxer also, former boxer in the film.
So
But
yeah, we have to see that none of these movies also do done any good, right? I mean, in terms of marketing wise, in
well,
terms
yeah.
of doing good businesses as well. I don't know, probably because the star started saying in Sultan,
Hmm.
but that was still built around wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Hindi movies, but yeah, I think yeah, they've portrayed it kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't. It
They-
was
they-
less about
yeah.
wrestling and more about Bhai.
I mean, I could make a better movie actually. If you cast me in it or some other actual MMA fighter, and yeah, probably make a story like that.
How far are we from this being recognized as a sport, in terms of Olympics or some other federations? How long is that journey right now, Mayank? What do you think?
I doubt that, man. I think they were in talks with bringing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into it, but
Yeah, I
they'd
think
been stopped. Yeah.
recently Sambo, Muay Thai, and kickboxing have basically gotten provisional recognition, which means that they may either feature in 2024 or 2028. So these mainstream standalone combat sports have just gotten provisional sort of recognition. For something like MMA, which has gotten WADA accreditation only in January of 2022, I think the journey is far, far longer. And I mean, Mank, you also understand how much lobbying happens to and fro. And then everyone's expecting Dana White of UFC to jump on the bandwagon and sort of fast track the entire thing. But it doesn't work that way.
I think they'll choose the most safest sport, right? Out of them, also the ones that you mentioned that have been put in that provisional list.
Hmm.
Safest. I don't think Muay Thai is anywhere going to be there. You wouldn't see people like Olympic followers, like fans sitting there, someone just elbowing and just breaking someone's nose. Literally, we see that on TV. I see
Yeah.
these repeat events, MMA events, where they've started doing the black and white when someone
Yeah.
starts
Yeah.
bleeding uh, on 10-3 or some other channels. So it's quite a far off reach. MMA, though, I think it's kind of hard to
Hmm.
expect it to go to Olympics. Maybe amateur
Hmm.
with shin guards and with other gloves and with different rules where you can't land elbows and knees.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just remember this. So I competed the first time in 2012 in uh, some stupid tournament in Delhi, some Muay Thai tournament. And so we were wearing gear as if we were dressed as gladiators. So I had a headgear, I had a elbow guard, I had a chest guard, I had a groin guard, obviously, knee guard, I had a shin guard, which covered my feet as well. So total zombies,
Mike,
and
if you find the picture of this and share it with us, that's going to make it to our thumbnail for the episode.
Dude, back in the day, so we're just going back in the day when there were no tournaments, no one knew about this. 2012, and then I fought the referee. So the referee, the one who was the referee,
Yeah.
he kind of for my fight, he was my opponent, and he changed his gear, and then I'm like, okay, wasn't he refereeing earlier? And the tournament was pretty bad. I mean, they used to. I mean, because there wasn't any money. Imagine that, right?
Mhm.
Back in the day. Now, though, we MMA we have UFC we have these channels that are showing it.
Mhm.
Muay Thai back in the day, 2012, Delhi, Talkatoora Stadium, all these boxes were training. Plus, we had these events. We had Bollywood music playing around. I entered to some funny song, right? And this was so we got there at 6 in the morning. My fight was at 6 in the evening.
Mhm.
I hadn't eaten anything. Oh, crazy! I was like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, something like that. Like if you coming back to your question, right? If we go into Olympics and because they're trying to find the most safest things, dude.
Right.
You've seen the kind of bizarre sports they have, right?
Correct.
No disrespect to anyone, but there are certain bizarre sports, right, which can't be considered as sports, honestly. Like if you put a sport like judo or
Yeah.
that sport into that same bracket, it's kind of it's crazy. Like how could that be a sport, right? But it's and I don't think that makes a lot of difference as well. Sure, it's just giving great amount of recognition to people. But what do people want? In terms of it just comes down to being the UFC is probably the flag bearer of
Yeah.
MMA. It comes to so fighters are like let's just go there and just make our life. In a sense, just get all the money that you want to, and plus we'll be worshipped in our country as well, right? Especially imagine a person, an Indian, going there and winning a fight as well, right? And doing his share of marketing, he just beats up someone and such a huge name, dude. It'll be kind of amazing. It'll be the biggest thing. He'll become a hero. And I think he'll just retire probably after that first fight. I hope he doesn't. But yeah, I mean, it won't be a far off reality, dude. And but I still there were broken nose in that tournament, dude. Like people had found a way,
Oh,
so they were going for a clinch and a knee, and that referee eventually broke his nose. Like, yeah, not me, but a fight prior to mine or stuff. Like he lost his nose, dude. The guy, the only one thing that was like
Exposed.
he could access that was the nose, and he went for it. I knew that guy. He was a friend of mine. He used to be a customs officer, really ripped guy,
yeah.
and was on like yeah, but yeah, kind of fit. I won't say some other thing that he was on, but just went on a
Enough said. Mayank says so
but
much without saying something.
yeah, good. But like super fit, guy goes to 20 seconds into it, just went for a clinch and knee and just broke his nose and just won the fight. And that's same rules, like the guy started bleeding, the fight's over because it has to be a safe environment.
Hmm.
So something similar to how they would have an event in UFC or in the Olympics as well, right? Someone goes for a broken nose or there's some blood, you're like, oh, that's over, fight over. So yeah, that's how it is, dude.
But $1 million question that we get a lot from a lot of folks we talk about is what is the best background, fighting background one needs to have to become a successful MMA fighter? Profile or like the ideal attributes of your uh, best or most ruthless fighter.
I think the answer will be you will soon get the answer,
Okay.
which is uh, with this
Yeah.
fight coming up,
Okay.
Islam and Charles Oliveira,
Yes. Okay.
which is which I think because Islam is like a straight out wrestler.
Yeah.
That's his pedigree. Sure, both of them are like MMA fighters now, but
Yeah.
it's just wrestling and jiu-jitsu now,
Right.
right? Mainly, that's what they are comfortable with. Sure, the striking has improved. I think Charles Oliveira's striking has slightly it's better than Islam is what I see from the last time,
Yeah.
right? From what we saw in the Justin Gaethje fight, and we have to only see the takedown defenses as well.
Mhm.
But again, I think it's been much more easier for individuals coming from a wrestling background. If we look at the record,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Looking at GSP, looking at John Jones, DC, who else I can name? Yoel Romero,
Yeah.
looking at individuals like Ritu Fogart as well,
Correct.
right? It's been much more easier because, yeah, that's what I feel. The balance and the base, having a good base.
Hmm.
So base is basically just understanding your weight itself, right?
Right.
And not just withering and just moving around. In a sense, is having a good control over your body as well. So wrestling just teaches you that, and it's quite a competitive sport. So yeah, a lot of these it's been much more
Yeah.
easier. Brock Lesnar, for that matter,
Yeah.
right? Just happened to win because of his wrestling, his
Yeah.
ground and pound,
NCAA
right?
champion, Kale
Yeah.
Sonnen.
And then on the contrary
Yeah.
is like people like Diaz, right? Like, but again, to Diaz's point, he's got a crazy, he's like a badass. Right? He just can take an amount of damage, right? Kind of invincible in one way, like 9 on 10 invincible, right? If we had to rate him on that,
Yeah.
it's so like someone who's not dying. So he's like yeah. So that's given to him. But I think wrestling can be one thing where things can be much more easier. And who else? There's a um, yeah, some other guy as well, Marvin Vittori, I think, and some new upcoming guy. But then if you look at MMA as well, someone who's like training total pure MMA,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really like Robert Whittaker,
Right.
right? He's training, he's amazing. But then we look at striking as well. Alex Pereira is that guy who can only strike. Now he's working on defensive, but he'll have to show how good he is, right? When
Correct.
it comes to going against a good wrestler, if you put them against them. Uh, and yeah, man, I mean, one dimension you can look at Khabib coming
Yeah.
in there, right? And just dominating all of it
Correct.
because his wrestling and that certain amount wrestling was just sorted. With Justin Gagey, if you watch that
Yeah.
fight, he's not even
Yeah.
trying to strike. He's like literally just going for it,
Yeah. Just
like a
taken.
zombie.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I'm gonna absorb and I'll just go for it. So I think wrestling is something that just gives you a good base. Any of these three, dude,
Hmm.
be it jiu-jitsu, wrestling, or striking, we just have many examples of wrestling.
Hmm.
But again, a lot of fighters are now doing it the right way, of training MMA, proper MMA.
Right.
And yeah, a lot of these guys, I like
Yeah.
Bryce Mitchell,
Hmm.
is this guy who fought at Edson Barboza. I was watching his thing, yes, a couple of days ago, post fight. He fought at Edson Barboza, beat him, and yeah, this fight would be a good to.
I think they might just cancel out each other and just start brawling. That's
Yeah.
something which can happen as well.
It'll be a good fight, dude. I mean, yeah, or someone who's like, oh yeah, I hope it happens. It doesn't. Like there've been talks that like, from both ends that this person doesn't want to fight me, doesn't want to fight me, isn't that? But I hope
Yeah.
that's just
Trash
I
talk.
think
just
Khabib has been saying a lot of things as well. He's saying that he's not going to turn up, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of legend fighters that you just mentioned, Mayank, what do you think of Mighty Mouse? He had his fight recently. He fought Adriano Moraes. Did you see that fight?
dude. I don't exactly remember the opponent, but might have seen the fight. But I saw a little video as well, some title video where on Mighty Mouse that how they try to kill that legend, something like how the UFC try to kill. I don't know how to believe that title, but it's so real that the guy is so talented,
Hmm.
probably
Yeah.
the best pound for pound, but not given that credit because of his size, I think, or probably he didn't have many opponents in that category. But amazing, dude. That fight and also this guy where he
Yeah.
fought
Rotang.
Rotang, who's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Rotang, or how do you pronounce that name? The Thai legend. So it was a 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of MMA, 5 minutes of
Yeah.
of proper MMA, Muay Thai, and all these things. And he just
Yeah.
kind of he didn't do bad in the Muay Thai as well, dude. I mean, the first 5 minutes, then he just went for the kill. So the guy is I really like him, dude. His attitude and everything, you can learn a lot from him, and very still very underrated.
More about the package, the all-round package you bring to the table, how flamboyant you are, your skills on the mic.
Yeah, man. I mean, uh, I don't know whether it's. I mean, you can take it both ways, right? You can be nice in a sense that we talk about McGregor. He's got
Yeah.
everything he has because of showmanship and as well. People kind of hate
Same
him.
with
Some people.
Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, yeah, Israel Adesanya as well. I kind of like Israel Adesanya. Uh, decent, not very
Doesn't
huge
cross
fan,
the
but I
line
like.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't cross the line too much, and
Walks the talk.
I mean it's okay as long as you are having a great entertainment. I mean, as fans, it's been an amazing show. It's not great to be on the other side, right? You can ask Jose Aldo about that, but yeah, man. I mean, yeah, that just he just remembers that everything got into his head, dude. Otherwise, that fight could have been better. We can't just say that he was
Yeah.
terrible because he had no chance or nothing. But that
Yeah.
strategy was bad. That was just solid emotions coming out. And it's a different experience, dude. I mean, for me as well, if I talk about my experience of fighting and just going inside and it's the same. And I kind of look back, I'm like, what kind of emotion should I hold,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm nice with this guy,
Yeah.
and I've competed. Yeah, I know him, and we were competing. So how should I act? Should I not go for a handshake? Should I? So all of these feelings were there, but after the fight, it was all over.
Correct.
It was just me chilling with this guy and with his entire team. I was chilling and having breakfast next morning. Right after the fight is where we got a picture together. And I'm like, before the fight, I was creating all that anxiety and
Yeah.
all of that, crazy built up thing, you know. But it's kind of strange. It's just you have to just be yourself. And when a fighter is not being themselves or an individual not being themselves, it's easier to pick on that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel that energy. You don't see any. That's why Colby Covington is not being
Yeah.
picked on that well with the fans, right? He's not. I mean, I'm not saying that he's bad or anything. I like his style and he's kind of amazing, but that's what his people around him have said, right? That he wasn't this person, and he's trying to put on this show, this character,
Correct.
later on in his career, and that's how he became. He was able to, get success with that, and get all of a sudden get into the limelight because he changed, he molded himself, which I think is also important.
Yeah.
If you see a UFC fighter doing that, which just tells you that your skills are not the only thing, right?
Correct.
You need to have a certain amount of something else as well, that extra potent, that selling point. After all, it's just coming back to making money out of it, right? So yeah, you got to be that marketable person, and yeah, man. I mean, that's there.
Your top three MMA fighters of all time and why?
Oh,
I know it is
yeah.
a tough question, which is why we have now put you into a submission with.
So number one would be easy, dude. Number one is like, so I mean, people could have their different
Yeah,
favorites,
of
but I'm
course.
just going by what I've seen, right? I'm just going by my own favorites in a sense. This could be
For sure.
outside of MMA as well, outside of skills.
Awesome.
But GSP is my favorite. George St. Pierre as a human being as well, how he conducts himself, how he has conducted himself throughout, what he's doing right now as well, the amount of intelligence and
Yeah.
smartness he has when it comes to the sport. And which when it comes to the outside thing as well, I see his posts and stuff as well.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy and a seeker, and that's something I'm on a journey on as well, right? Seeking and exploring and stuff. Uh, Plus a true martial artist. That's something that I was called since the very beginning. Like I would, yeah, certain things that I just held on to, true to myself and all. So GSP has been very relatable, dude. Also because I used to do his workouts as well. So that's one guy. Talks
Mm.
about how he doesn't enjoy fighting, which is kind of very normal. He doesn't come from that, background.
Yeah.
He hated fighting, is what he said. During the time he was fighting, but he would just do it, which is kind of amazing to see, right? A lot of people who wouldn't kind of think that, okay, why is he saying he's so
Correct.
good at it? Why does he hate it? But it's not. No one
Yeah.
wants to get their ass whooped or face beaten up, right? So yeah, GSP certainly, dude. That number one list, right? And yeah, who else, dude? Anderson
Right.
Silva, surely because of his skill set, dude. For what he's offered, to the sport. Um, yeah, kind of amazing, the skill set and the entertainment and the
Mhm.
highlight reel and everything. So Anderson Silva also would be good. I liked a lot of Pride guys, dude. One for me is certain. Two, three, I wouldn't care about
Sure.
honestly, so I would just put anyone on that list. But two, three, four could be anyone, dude.
Okay.
Mirko Krokop is someone I used to look up to a lot.
Yeah.
Krokop, who was this Croatian cop in Pride fighter back in the day. He's got some amazing highlight reel of knockouts, right?
Mhm.
Crazy. I would love his entrance, and those Pride entrances were something else, dude. Just coming out to some crazy Pride music and
Absolutely.
the vibe and everything. So they would leave WWF behind, dude, when they would do their entrances and stuff. And then you knew that he was like actual badasses just going to whoop your ass, right? So, so Marco Krokov was also certainly on that list, dude. Marco Krokov, and I can't think about anyone else, dude. Khabib, surely, dude. Khabib is there, with the wrestling and stuff. Uh, and yeah, for his demeanor, dude, of just training and that hardcore, that mindset of being a champion and everything. And yeah, man, of just going inside to
Correct.
that corner fight also, because it's a lot of energy, dude. I mean, of
Yeah.
going inside the corner fight and doing what he did. Uh, so yeah, a lot of these fighters, dude. I mean, yeah, but GSP for sure, and yeah, many other fighters can just follow the list. Like I look up to GSP as well because I see a person who's not injured himself, harmed himself that really badly. He
Yeah.
looks better than how he did, when he was competing. Still doing some stuff. I was watching a little video of him just practicing a Van Damme sidekick. So that's how it is, dude. It's just one part of your life, right? And life, like we all know, it's just a long journey. You can't be competing during your old age and stuff. It's
Correct.
just a certain phase of your life. So you live that phase with honor and with whatever you want to achieve through that, and then exercise your life outside of that as well once that phase is over, and do the best you can for yourself
Amazing,
and the
amazing.
people around you as well.
Because I've known Mayank for a while, I knew that he is going to bring a philosophical angle as well, getting the fighter's mindset. And great to hear from you, Mayank, absolutely. Mayank, can you tell us where can we find you? How can we connect on you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram, actually. Instagram, Facebook, I'm not very active. I don't think anyone else is. But Instagram at MEK underscore KOHLI, which is Mac underscore Kohli, MEK Mac. Right? And yeah, you can reach out to me there. And yeah, that's how it is, man. All the best to everyone that's listening and
Thanks,
to you
Mayank.
guys as well.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.